Your beat is the intro music.
Oh, look at me. I made it. It says big time.
Big time.
Let me get the stream. Let me get the stream open. Okay, I gotta finish. I have a few others I can send you. You'll have a.
We'll have a plethora. We'll have a playlist.
I'll give you a little playlist.
Perfect.
You like those? You like those Drake-like vibes? Is that you like that sound? Because I got more like that.
Oh shit!
Okay, I got you.
You got me. All right, we're officially live right now. We're just gonna take it easy, really quick. Just wait for everybody to come in. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the show so far, even though we just started. But hopefully, you're enjoying it right now. We're getting ready to start the week right. Start it off right.
What have you been into, Bernie? Let's start it off right just by some what's that word? What's the word you'd say? A little pre-show, I guess, is what I'm thinking of.
A little pre-show.
What have you been watching? What have you been interested in, Bernie? We haven't talked very much lately, so I'm curious.
Let's see. What have I been into lately?
We're in the doldrums of basketball, so I mean we got to entertain ourselves somehow.
I've just been staying busy with basketball, looking up plays, and just kind of, doing some more coaching stuff for basketball more so. So that's kind of been taking my fancy.
Are you telling me that you have not been tuning into the WNBA playoffs?
Actually, I did tune into the Liberty game. I tuned in.
Okay, I tried to bait you into something there, but you did great with a legitimate answer because I could tell just by the way you answered, you're telling the truth.
Yeah, I've been watching Sabrina. She's probably one of my favorite players.
Yeah, she's nasty. She's so good. I'll be straight up. I really don't watch WNBA. No offense. I think there's it's getting a lot better right now, but she's filthy, dude. She's so good.
Yeah. So I've been watching her game, and I've been excited to kind of continue watching that. I know our Storm are in the playoffs right now. They actually won last night, but probably will tune in at some point just to check it out because I know, again, we made that video a while back talking about, the pay gap and things like that. And I think it's more of a question of how do you get it to that point instead of saying that'll never will. But, that's another topic for another day.
No, so back to my original question. You have watched nothing or done anything besides basketball related things lately?
I was actually thinking about watching, I need to watch the Game of Thrones, House of Dragons.
I've heard it's all right.
Yeah,
I'm off of the Game of Thrones though.
You're more of a Lord of Rings.
I'll watch the Lord of the Rings show when it comes out. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I'm definitely more of a Lord of the Rings person. I don't know. Game of Thrones is.
It's not your Steve's anymore.
It's something, man. It's all right. Dude, the show fell off after the first season. I'll say it. I'm that guy. I think the first season of that show is the best season. I might be the only person on planet Earth that feels that way.
No, I think a lot of people felt that way. I think once the R.R. Martin stuff kind of once his writing material was gone, the show kind of took a.
Well, I think that's like season 4 or 5. I think is when that started to happen. Yeah. But season 1 was where it was at. That was the golden era of Game of Thrones. Dude, I guess we should get to that. We should get to the actual stream, but it has been a quiet little bit of time here for any sort of content in the last little bit.
Yeah, I mean, have you listened to God Did with Khaled and?
I've not. No, I've been listening to the new JID album, JID, the man. It's good. It's good stuff. If you haven't listened to that, check it out. He's one of the best right now.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it myself. And then in terms of shows, again, nothing really. I mean, I watched the Top Gun, I guess is the latest. I failed to watch Hustlers, so I need to watch that.
Oh yeah, you still got to watch Hustle.
I'm failing my homework right now.
You're doing all right. It's not like it's that prevalent. I still haven't seen Top Gun. I'm not. I probably won't see it eventually. I probably will see it eventually.
All right.
Yeah. No. What did I say? I saw the new Dragon Ball movie. Highly recommend. Everybody go see that.
I mean, gotta wait for it to come out on DVD or
other
fine. Means.
Very, very good stuff.
All right. So
you and your other means. Sorry, you and your other means.
But as we kind of proceed to give you what you need here on The Charge, given the latest NBA news and rumors, and also basketball opinions. Let's get started on today's Podal. Take it to the next stream or the next slide. Here we go. Podal of the day. All right, Pete, give me a player. Give me a player.
Give you a player. Zach Collins.
All right, let's see. Ooh, okay. So, not on the Spurs, not in the West, not in the Southwest, not position of a forward or center, shorter than 6'11", age is older than 24, and number is lower than 23.
Okay, what was the first thing you said?
Not on the Spurs, not in the Western Conference, and not in the Southwest Division.
Not on the Spurs, not in the Western Conference.
Nope.
Shorter than 6'11". Sadiq Bey.
Maybe I'll spell it Bay. Man, am I don't know how to spell Sadiq Bey?
Saddiq
Oh, there we go.
Bey.
All right. The only thing you got right there was that it was in the Eastern Conference. You still got
Okay, that was rough.
But
that was rough.
Not a forward. So shooting guard or point guard.
Not a forward. Okay, that's valuable information.
It's lower. Shorter than 6'7", older than 23. So he's an old player, and lower than number 24 and lower than number 23.
Oh, goodness, this is a little tough. I'm gonna say, dang, who am I gonna say? I will go. He's older than 23. He's not a forward, so he's a guard. Is it? Did you say he has to be taller than a certain height?
Yeah.
Or is he's not 6'11"?
Drunk.
Only person that keeps coming to my mind is Ish Smith. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Ish Smith. He could be in any team for all I know. He's been on every team.
Well, you're wrong. Because he's in the West. Drunk, you said Jalen.
Jeez, I don't know where.
Drunk said Jalen Suggs, but the only thing with Jalen Suggs is that he's younger than 24.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Right. So hang on. Let me move this. I feel like it's not showing the whole thing.
I have an answer. Yeah, no, you got the top corner of it.
All right, there you go.
I'll say here just because he just got hurt. I'll say him just out of respect. Gary Harris.
All right, let me pick Gary Harris.
An Orlando brethren.
All right, here we go. Survey says.
Let's hear it.
No, but he is a guard. Let's see, shorter than 6'4". Okay, so he's taller than 6 foot, but it's taller than 6.
He's a guard in the Eastern Conference.
Not in the Central and not in the Southeast. It looks like.
Damn, that is tough. I like Drunk's answer there, James Harden. I'll go with that.
James Harden. All right.
Actually, no, he can't. It can't be him. Can he? Oh no, wait. Harden's 6'6". Yeah, James Harden. I was gonna say it's 6'7".
Ooh, we're in the right division though. Eastern Conference. At the Atlantic, guard, shorter than 6'5", younger than 33, and higher than number 1. All right.
Let me go off my own team. Jalen Brunson.
Oh wait, let me.
Oh, is he shorter than 6? Oh, damn, it's 6'4". I keep missing that one height right there.
Jalen Brunson, no, but let's see here. We got Larry James in the building. What's up, Larry James?
Dude, Anthony Edwards is my guy. We'll get to him in a little bit. He's easily like in my top 3 favorite players in the NBA right now. I love Anthony Edwards.
So you got the right conference guard position, but he's taller than 6'1", and jersey number is lower than 13.
Lower than 13. Let's go. I have a good guess, I think.
So you've already go. You got the Knicks out of the way. You got Philly out the way. It's gotta be another one from the Atlantic Division. Who we going with?
Man,
you have 2 more guesses left.
Oh my gosh, we're getting down into the clutch minutes here. I gotta get this. He's got to be older than 23. That takes like a bunch of my answers like off the list of people I would name. What about?
So he's old. So he's younger than 33, but older than 27.
Okay. Oh my goodness, man. What about? What a? Oh my god, dude. What? I'm just gonna name the hardest names I can for you to spell, so we'll never find out. What about Thibault?
Thibault? No, it can't be
Yeah.
because he's on the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh,
No,
he's on the Sixers. Oh,
yeah.
jeez, man, I'm losing it.
So you have.
Oh, I know who it is. I got
All
it.
right, you got it.
It's got to be a Celtics player. So I'm gonna say it's Derek White. I think that's the answer.
Derek White. Survey says no.
God dang it. Did that give me any more information, or are we just down to our final guess and it's got to be a Hail Mary?
I'll show you the silhouette. So if you pay attention to my stream, Pete, you'll see the silhouette. Maybe
I'm watching. It'll take me a second to update, but let me see the silhouette.
Maybe the silhouette.
Can you see the silhouette? Is it helping you?
I think somewhat.
Oh my gosh, that does not sound promising. Oh, that's Kyrie.
Is that Kyrie? You going Kyrie?
That's 100% Kyrie.
All right, let's go, Kyrie.
Silhouette is clearly Kyrie. I can see I see the Novaks.
Yes.
All over it. Let's go, dude.
It's Kyrie. All right, final guess was Kyrie.
The last unlockable character in the next Smash Brothers, Kyrie.
All right. So again, we tried to play this game just as a little fun thing. Obviously, I'll probably have some more music curated by my boy Pete. He's got a playlist. He's got ourselves what's the More Life
finale. Yeah, I got you on the More Life playlist.
More Life playlist. So but Pete's got us on the tunes next time. Again, we do apologize that we're not starting it right away. But with that being said, thank you, Larry James. Thank you, Drunk, for tuning in to the charge again today. We're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to obviously talk about the Gilbert Arenas situation in terms of what he said about Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll recap that, and then of course we'll do our top, and just to do a little sneak peek of our top NBA 15 list. Again, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Of the players.
We're going to
do teams later in this closer to the season.
Yeah. But with that being said, let's get right into the first story, and that is, of course, Gilbert Arenas on his show with Phil Handy, which disappoints me a little bit that he said this, but it's Phil Handy and Gilbert Arenas. Let's listen in on what they had to say about Giannis at the beginning.
There is a true gap. You know, I talk to people about that all the time. Yeah, there's elite, but then there's another level of elite in our league of what players look like.
And what's so funny is the media tries to shorten it.
They do.
They try to shorten this gap like it's this, like, oh, he's the best player in the league. Not even close. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Like, this gap is so big, but you're trying to always replace the next person by putting it back. Like his work, I can look at his game and say, he doesn't understand basketball yet. He plays the sport. He won a championship. Cool. He doesn't really understand how to be great, how to be better, how to train his body. Like, you know, I'm looking at the stats. Oh, playing 32 minutes, 34 minutes, 30. I'm sorry, but to be here, you have to train your body to at least 38 minutes and above. Like LeBron played 37 minutes at 37. That's a whole, like, that's a whole. Iverson was playing 43 minutes. 43 minutes, like there's a real, like.
All right. So with that being said, Drunky said Arenas is a professional hater. Tar Heel said Gilbert Arenas still holds the NBA's worst contract of the 2000s.
It's up there.
All right, Pete. We really got to talk about this. I think that this to me is obviously player hater. It just reminds me of it reminds me of the Dave Chappelle skit of the haters ball. Many moons ago. If you watch that,
real goes wrong.
You know, probably one of the biggest haters in the game. Here's what we'll say about this. I think obviously both of us. I should ask you: are you in agreement with what Gilbert said?
I mean, I couldn't be any farther away from agreement with Gilbert Arenas. I think this is one of the ultimate clown takes. I think at this point, I'm going to keep my answer to this pretty straight and simple. I think at this point, if you're doubting Giannis, I don't really think you watch him play basketball. I really don't. What kind of critique does that make sense for somebody who never won a championship, first of all? I mean, that's just the simplest part of the equation right there. Gilbert never sniffed the championship in his entire career, and he is telling a guy who carried a team to a championship in, one of the hardest seasons to ever do it, the season coming out of the coronavirus pandemic, right? Even in the middle of it still, and he carried his team. And realistically, Bernie, I think both of us agree with this to a certain extent too. They probably could have made it to the finals had Chris Middleton been healthy this last season. I know that hurts you as a Celtics fan, but I mean, it was very close without Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, I think they would have beat the Warriors if they had made it to the finals healthy. But that didn't happen, so you can't really equate it. Even then, it still doesn't matter. It's just a wild take. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I just think like when you look at what he said about Giannis, I think what comes to me is let's look at the rest of his peers in this league. Again, this was probably one of the first years in his career. Again, we look at the careers before that, 30 minutes a game, 33 minutes a game. In today's game, you look at these players and look at what their minutes are averaging. It's about 35. I mean, we look at Luka Doncic, 35 is what he played last year, 34 the year previous. We look at Kevin Durant. I would kind of compare it to the Golden State Warriors championship years. If we look at it, even his Oklahoma City days in his prime. We got at 26 years old, 33.8. I know he only played 27 games, but then he goes to the championship years in Golden State. 35, 33, 34. And then Jason Tatum, same thing. I'm not sure why these ads are appearing everywhere, but again, these are not sponsored by the Charge, so that's a little frustrating. But again, around 35 to 36 minutes. Again, when I look at these stats and then I look at what Gilbert Arenas said about Giannis, it makes no sense to me. I think that this is one of those things where the news media was slow. They had to talk about a story, and the story, again, is attacking Giannis. For some reason, I feel like Gilbert does not like Giannis.
He obviously doesn't.
It kind of gives me some undertones about, Giannis being an international player. I'm not necessarily liking the international guys. That's kind of what I get the vibe of from a guy like Gilbert. Again, I think Giannis, again, is he the guy that's going to do everything and everything? I mean, let's look at this, Pete. Let's think back to when people thought that Shaquille O'Neal was the best player in the league. Shaquille O'Neal was not averaging as many assists as Giannis was. And Gilbert talks about the IQ of the game and things like that. Like, look, Giannis is not necessarily going to do... He's not the end-all, be-all. He's not a small forward. He's more of a power forward center type of build. More of like that kind of inside presence. And so to me, to compare him and say like, oh, he's got to do this, this, and this to be considered great, I just find it laughable, man.
I mean, it's almost too far to even be laughable. Like, it's more of just like, why do you even have a platform to talk about this type of thing? Like, if this is what you're going to do and waste people's time,
Mm-hmm.
But to say that Giannis, like, if there's any criticism of Giannis's game, it's one place, and it's his 3-point shooting at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's literally the only borderline fair criticism. He is the most well-rounded player in the league, not named LeBron James, in my opinion, right now in the NBA.
Yeah.
And even then, LeBron isn't the number 2 best player in the league right now. Spoiler for our lists in a little bit, but that's because LeBron is 40, right? Giannis is in the prime of his career. He's a freak athlete. And even the implication that he doesn't do what it takes to win it's asinine. It's just craziness. Because, like, this is a dude, and this is where, like, the getting on top of him about his basketball IQ really gets me, right? Because I know you and I were deep in the trenches in the 2021 or the 2020 NBA playoffs, excuse me. Or no. It was the 2021. It was the year that the Bucks won, right?
Yeah.
Giannis did one thing that only the greatest of great players in the NBA in NBA history have ever done, and that is make adjustments on like a complete fundamental level in the middle of a series and change the fortunes of his entire team. And not only that, he did it like 3 times. He did it in each of the final 3 series of the playoffs leading up to them winning the championship. He was adjusting and finding out what was working for him in particular and what his team needed to do at every point of those playoffs. And as a result, they ended up winning because he was their best player. I mean, I'm going to be a little rude to Gilbert here. He couldn't even sniff Giannis's jockstrap in his best days. Like, he couldn't. I'm sorry. Gilbert was nasty in the beginning of his career. He was a legit all-star, but even then, there was no universe where Gilbert Arenas was ever leading a team to a conference championship. He was not that good. So to be this dude now and talk this, crazy talk about guys who are actually great, like Giannis is a top 25 player of all time probably already, in my opinion. Right. I think he's probably like number 25 if he's on that list. But he's top 25 already, and he's 27 or 28. Like, what are you talking about? This is just old heads criticizing the current generation of players just to criticize. Because Giannis is, I would argue, one of the very few players in the NBA right now that without a doubt you could put him in any generation and he would thrive. Any generation, Giannis is a generational player. There are not many players like that at any point in the NBA, and Giannis is one of those dudes.
Yeah. I mean, this to me just gives me the vibes of a Skip Bayless, but in the reverse, right? This is like, for Gilbert Arenas, Giannis is equivalent to LeBron James for Skip Bayless. I mean, it just continues to talk about him, continues to create narratives about Giannis, about, how he plays, his IQ. Does he really understand the game of basketball? Here's one thing that European teams will do a lot better than I believe, anywhere in the world, and that is to teach these young guys the fundamentals of more so the IQ of how to play the game. Knowing when you drive baseline to have the 45 guy cut. When to drive middle, that's when the baseline guy or the guy in the corner cuts to the basket. I mean, to me, European basketball does a great job of teaching those kids instinctually how to play the game. And to say that Giannis doesn't have the IQ, or to say that Giannis is not at the level of where he needs to be like one of the top guys in the league, it's preposterous. And this is what disappointed me about Phil Handy being on that show. Again, I respect Phil Handy. I think he does a lot of great work in the community. Does a lot of great work for the game to kind of continue to cultivate it for the next generation coming up, with his training and methods and everything like that. But I just think that by saying Giannis isn't that guy, it is a little frustrating, because I like the guy, but I don't think that he's right. And again, maybe some guys, with a lot of people saying that Giannis is the next dude, it gets people salty or gets people the wrong way. It's probably how Michael Jordan fans felt when they said that LeBron James was one of the best players of all time, or like is going to surpass Michael Jordan in some sense. That's where I feel like this is coming from. And so again, I think at the end of the day, when I look at it and when I see that we have probably the biggest haters of all time talking about it, I just think that it's for me, it's a tired narrative. I think Giannis is a very smart player. And then even like, think about this in the playoffs. So we look at his playoff stats for Giannis, the dude in the last couple of years, the year that he won the ring and the next year after that, he's averaging 38 to 37 minutes per game, respectively, in those 2 seasons. And it's just kind of
winning teams.
Yeah,
like anything you could say is great. Anything you could point to.
Yeah, exactly. And so
he's the best defender in the league.
Yeah,
like the list goes on. You don't be the best player defensively in the entire NBA and be probably the best offensive player in the league too. I mean, I don't think he's the best offensive player in the league. Let me make that clear. I think there's a couple guys who are a little bit more well-rounded offensively, but he's such a freak that he still ends up being probably the best offensive, weapon in the league anyway. That's the difference. That's the difference. Like, you can get on this guy for IQ all you want, but it doesn't make a difference when you're the number one guy in the league, or 2 or 3, regardless. It's so wild. It's so wild. It's really crazy to me. Like, because one of the things too is, like, Phil Handy, anything they said could and should have been directed towards Anthony Davis. Like, any of the criticisms they had, all should have been pointed towards Anthony Davis. The funny part is that they feel that they can say it towards Giannis because he's an international player, because he's whatever it is, right? They're not involved with him directly on the coach.
Yeah.
He's different than them. It's exactly it, man. He's different. The difference is AD, you can't criticize him because Phil Handy's a coach of the Lakers, right? And you don't want to get him sensitive about his issues. But all of those things were much more accurately directed at Anthony Davis, because you would say any of those things are true about him. You would hope more from him. He is better than he has been for years now. And the question is, does he put the work in physically to stay healthy? Does he put whatever it is to stay on the court? Does Anthony Davis do those things? We don't know. We don't know that, but we're going to criticize the best player in the league probably 4 or 5 years running now. And here's my last thing, because I don't think we should waste any more time on Gilbert Arenas, right? Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bean Bryant, okay, challenged Giannis as a young man. Like, Giannis had never even sniffed an MVP conversation. Yeah. And Kobe Bryant went out of his way and challenged him to be as great as Kobe thought he could be as a young player. And he said, go win an MVP. And what did Giannis do? He literally went and won an MVP that season. That challenge happened, right? Players like Kobe is the ultimate earned respect given type of player in the NBA, right? Probably in NBA history. He's one of, like, those guys, right? Yeah. And he reached out and saw that in Giannis, and I would just say, you're Gilbert Arenas. What are you even talking about? No, just stop. You're not Skip Bayless. You're not any of these people, and even then, those dudes are tired and outdated. Nobody wants to listen to Skip Bayless. So don't just go out and try and be that if that's not. It's one of two things. You're either trying to be that guy, or you're that just bad of a basketball opinion haver. It's one or both.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think the final thing that I'll say to it too is just, I think that, we talk about how, there's been unfair and just criticism to LeBron James all these years. And the fact that, again, we don't want to create another situation, and maybe the Durant stuff is another video in itself to talk about as like a, criticism in the media. But to me, I think Gilbert, I just do not like. I just feel like the take was a bad look. Again, it comes off as someone who is salty. It comes off as someone who probably wished that he had that innate ability, or that size, or that length, or that strength, just to do just an iota of what Giannis did. And again, I will never be an NBA player. I think I've admitted that since I was probably 13 or 14 years old when I was a kid. I will never be an NBA player. But one thing I will not understand, or one thing, maybe that's the reason why I won't ever understand maybe Gilbert's kind of jealousy. But at the same time, you cannot be hating on someone who is just trying, or not even trying, but he is one of the best players to ever, one of the top 75. And so for me, it's just kind of one of those things where you cannot hate on someone who's in the top 75. Someone, again, we're not trying to justify that he is the perfect player, right? Because obviously everybody has flaws. No one is a perfect player. But to say that, like, Giannis, after winning a championship, after winning an MVP, after leading, I believe he led the league in scoring once, I think. I could be wrong on that. Fact check me if I'm wrong on that. We can't be sitting here saying that Giannis doesn't have the IQ. I will not respect that opinion, because I think that's just the dumbest opinion to have about Giannis. Again, this is a team sport. It's 5-on-5. It's not 1-on-1. It's not 2-on-2. It's 5v5. Giannis and Mike Budenholzer, who I think Jason Kidd might have coached him a couple years, but for the most part, it's been Mike Budenholzer who's kind of molded him to that championship form. And so to me, like, we can't be sitting here saying that it's the IQ is the reason. Again, it's up to the coach how he wants to play his players and the style that he plays. There's a reason why the Warriors play a certain style. There's a reason why all these players play a certain style. It's because it's the way that the coaches want it directed, right? I think when we think about like the LeBron James Lakers, they're directed in a certain style as well. Where, for the most part, LeBron James will bring the ball up and down the court, will create the plays for everybody. Hopefully, it'll change this next year. That's my hope. But at the same time, thinking about it this way, Giannis has a certain role in the team that I think a lot of people they just need to respect that. And I just don't think that for a guy like Gilbert, who is, again, old school, like you said, and is going to be in this situation where he's like, Allen Iverson played 40 minutes a game, LeBron played 37, 38. This is a new NBA. And I think that's what these old heads need to realize when it comes to the game of the basketball.
Well, and also, I looked it up real quick. Gilbert Arenas actually, I don't believe he ever led the league in scoring. He was third place in 2006, 2007 behind Kobe and Carmelo. It was a 28.7 points per game season. Nice, right? Problem is that they only went 41 and 41. So even in your best year, Gilbert Arenas, you still were only 500. I think that's important to note, there's a level of criticism. It's kind of like, I feel like we see this all the time nowadays, and I don't want to get back into the rabbit hole, man, but there's a lot of Gilbert Arenases, a lot of Dan Orlovsky's, a lot of these guys who just like were backups or not even like better than that, right? The people who were Gilbert Arenas, like he's an all NBA player probably two to three times, right? It just doesn't matter, man. You don't have the right to sit out here and go criticize Giannis and Tom Brady and LeBron and all these people. And like, these guys are human too. They have little issues, but nitpicking them, I mean, it's crazy, man. The nitpicking that goes on nowadays is just off the charts.
Yeah, exactly. And let us know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of this Giannis Gilbert Arenas story? Is it a big deal? Is it no big deal? And if you were Giannis, do you respond? Do you not respond? And, just let us know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of this story talking about Giannis and Gilbert, the story and the love saga that continues between those two. Let us know in the comment section down below. And remember to like, share, and subscribe this video and this live stream while you're at it.
This is like a Drake Joe Budden type of situation. Why is Drake gonna belittle himself to respond to Joe Budden? Giannis does not need to respond to Gilbert Arenas. Don't waste your breath, Giannis.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next story, and that is, of course, not even a story. It's our opinion. Today, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you are watching this, thank you for watching. We have got to talk about our top 15 NBA players. I think this list will shake up a lot of people.
There's going to be people who are upset, probably. What's new?
Exactly. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. Pete, why don't you go first?
Boy. You want to start with honorable mentions? People who maybe could or should be in our top 15, or maybe just aren't, or maybe we think are going to be soon. Do you want to start with a few?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead? Why don't you go ahead and start? Actually, let me create a new row.
New row of honorable mentions. Let's just throw a few honorable mentions in there, because there's a few of them I think that are like pretty easy. Like these guys could or should be in the top 15. I'll name a few right off the bat. One is Zion. I think Zion, if he's healthy, is top 15. I think he's like right at the bottom of the top 15, but he's there. I mean, the stretch we saw of Point Zion in the 2020 season, he was easily a top 15 to me personally. So Zion, yes, is one. I would argue, I think Anthony Edwards is an honorable mention. I think he's probably like number 23 or 24 when I put my list out, or when I put my list together. I was writing stuff up, doing some research the other night.
Yep.
I have him in the 23 range, but I think by the end of this season, I think he's a top 15 player. That's just my opinion. I have super high hopes for Anthony Edwards, and I think he's that guy. I think he is.
He's that guy, pal.
Another honorable mention, somebody else I'm going to say, is Anthony Davis. I don't think Anthony Davis is in the top 15 currently, but by all accounts, he should be. Unless he's in your top 15, then we could, discuss. But I don't think he should be right now, personally. But he's close.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else that's in the...
The last one I will say is an honorable mention for me. There's definitely a few of these guys that should be honorable mentions that we're just not naming right yet. But we'll come back, I guess, around. I'm going to say Jaylen Brown. I don't think Jaylen Brown is a top 15 player. I think he's probably somewhere at the bottom of the 25 as well.
Yeah.
He
I
might
agree
even
with
be
that.
like 26 or 27, maybe.
I think he's 25.
I think he's
In
25
there.
too. I think that's where I had him on my list. But I think he's potentially an honorable mention right outside the top 20 on most days. Like, I would argue in a lot of that playoff run for the Celtics, he was like a top 15 player. It's just whether he could be that consistently, get his dribble, his handle together, and be a bit more of a playmaker. I would like to see that from him.
Yeah.
Any honorable mentions for you, my friend?
I think I got to put Darius Garland in the honorable mention. I think
Ooh, I like that one.
Again, I think he's a player that's on the rise. I think with the Colin Sexton injury, it kind of made Darius Garland the primary ball handler, kind of forced him into again, I love him, and I kind of compare him to Steve Nash a little bit more of an athletic Steve Nash, someone who has the IQ of the game perfectly down, knows when to pick up the dribble, when to just kind of continue going and exiting like Steve Nash did in that Phoenix Suns offense. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Darius Garland, so I'm excited to see him grow and develop. Another person that I'm going to put on the list, because I think that this could be a breakout season for him at some point.
Okay.
We keep saying it, is Brandon Ingram.
Wow. See, I wouldn't have said that. I like it, though.
We talk about a guy like Brandon Ingram. Again, it's always the potential with him. We talk about that, time in and time out. Even, the years when he was with LeBron James in the Lakers. I think that he's someone that has the potential to break out at some point. It just depends on, the situation. I think the situation's right this year, and I could definitely see him making some noise for the top 25 players. Again, honorable mention in this list, so I'm excited to see him. I think another person is obviously going to have to be, who am I going to put on this list?
I got one more. I don't know if he's going to make our top 50. He might make your top 15, but he's not in mine just because of some injury stuff.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
I think Dame Lillard is an honorable mention. I don't think he's top 15 right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We need to see him play. We need to see him get back healthy.
Yeah.
That ab injury he had for a while, got surgery last season. But even then, USA in the Olympic basketball, he was pretty bad. He was pretty bad during that stretch, and when he did come back at the beginning, I think he played in a little bit of the beginning of last season, right before he got injured,
Yeah.
or before he decided to get the surgery. He, if he's right, he's clearly a top 15. I think there's a couple guys that I would slide down and put him even higher than probably a few of them. Like he probably is like number 10, 9, 10, somewhere in there if he's healthy. But we need to see it from him first. He's honorable mention for me. I have one last one I would nominate. The only concern, I'm going to skip it though, because I think he's on your list. I think he made your list of top 15. So we're going to have to debate whether he's going to make the top 15.
All right, I'm excited for that. One more person I'll put in my my honorable mention list is DeMar DeRozan. I think he also kind of deserves a little bit of a mention. I think
I like that too.
Again, played some really, probably, had a revival year last year when a lot of people kind of were like, he probably should just take the mid-level exception from the Lakers, but the Bulls believed in him, gave him a huge contract, and he, rewarded them with his great play. Unfortunately, the injuries kind of shortened the season for them. But again, I'm excited to kind of continue seeing his progression as a player, seeing how he does. And so I think DeMar DeRozan deserves to be on that list for me.
True. Very, very true. All right. We can come back. Let's circle back around to the honorable mention. Before we get into our list, I have a question for you. This is critical because I actually am such a nerd with this stuff. I actually kind of wrote my list in two different ways. I had one that I was accounting for chemistry. It was accounting for like how they impact like a team.
Okay.
There's some obvious people in there, right? And I think it really devalues certain players. And I think if you have the ability to be objective about it, right, you can still see that there are certain players that are so good that they outweigh their chemistry issues, right? But they certainly detract from their value, right? Like they obviously do. So are we going to include chemistry concerns or just people who have some off the court issues? Not include them, but are we going to let that affect their place on this list? Because it changes a few for me. Not by a ton, but it does change my list a little bit.
I'll go no. Let's not let that affect anything.
Oh gosh, okay. All right. I'm ready for it.
All right. Who's your number 15? Numero 15. 15.
Oh man, this is tough. This is a guy I would not have said. No, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna say it's Trae Young is my number 15.
Trae Young, Ice Trae.
Trae Young is my top. He's in my top 15. He's number 15.
Okay.
There's just things with Trae Young that definitely are big detractors, and we're gonna skip the chemistry stuff. But Trae Young's defense has to come into the equation. Like, there's just certain guys like, and I'll spoil. Number 14 for me is gonna be Paul George. Is 14.
PG.
And I went back and forth with this because I would argue that I would rather take Trae Young personally if I'm trying to win a championship right now. I think I could build the team around him that would support him, but the problem is that Paul George is just so much more well-rounded. He just is so much more well-rounded, and a lot of the guys that I'm going to come to on this list, they're pretty much all more well-rounded of players than Trae Young is. So Trae is 15. It's just his offense is just so good. What you were so high on him coming into that year's draft, I'll never let people forget. Bernie was riding so hard for the Trae Young folks out there. I mean, this guy was all on top of it, and you couldn't have been more right. Everything you said about him is pretty much proven to be true for the most part. But the one thing that always surprises me with Trae, because it's just not like he's famous for shooting threes, even this early in his career. That's what people think of. But he's such a good passer. His court vision is so good for how small he is. It's just a thing of absolute beauty, and really, that's what puts him in the top 15. If it was just based on his scoring, there's guys I would rather take, like that I think are like Darius Garland is a good example. I would argue even Darius Garland is a little bit more well-rounded of a player than Trae Young is. I might be off on that, but I think he is. The difference is that Trae Young is just such an otherworldly passer on top of his scoring. It really puts him in an elite category. 14 is Paul George. Paul George has actually climbed up my ranks in the last few years.
Push off P?
A lot of that, dude, I've been really impressed with how he's held down the Clippers when he's been healthy. Like, he has really held them down in a way that I didn't think he was capable of doing. And that is not due to his talent. I've always thought Paul George is a bit of a head case in like a not in a disrespectful way, but like I think he gets in his head a lot when he's playing. And I think we've seen that at many times in his career. Obviously, some of the playoff implosions in the middle of his career. Yeah. But he's proved me wrong, man. That run they had once Kawhi got injured really started to change my opinion of him. And when he was healthy last season, there was points where he was like a top 10 player. So I'm going to say Paul George is 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
13.
I kind of figured.
Go ahead.
No, the only thing I was going to say, I kind of figured that you would talk about that in terms of PG on this list. So he was on my honorable mention list, but I thought you would talk about him, so I kind of left him off the list. So just a heads up.
Yeah, you left Paul George off your list.
I left him off the list.
That is very interesting to me because now that means that one of the guys I left off my list is certainly going to be on yours. My number 13.
All right, go ahead. 13.
God, dude, I'm going to shift my list. I'm sorry. I'm shifting my list.
I'm
going to put my number 13. I'm going to move him to 15 and just the other two can just slide up one. I'm going to put Kyrie at 15.
Kyrie at 15. Let's see where he's at.
Kyrie is not in my top 15 if we went by my chemistry list. I wouldn't even have him in my top 30 if in the chemistry list. And that's not even being crazy. Like he's like 32 or 33, right? Of like, this is a guy I would want if I was trying to win. But Kyrie is just, he's so talented. It makes it so frustrating to like, you just want him to be that guy on the court all the time. And, barring any of your stances on Kyrie off the court, I'm not trying to get into that. We're not even talking about it. It's just one of those things where you just wish you could see this guy play more often. Like that is always what comes down to like why I get so frustrated with Kyrie. He's so talented. He might be one of the just most pure talented players we've ever seen in the NBA. The question is like, can he ever get out of his own way enough to just show everybody how good he is? And the reason I just changed him from 13 to 15, and it's something I kind of forgot and didn't take into consideration. He was really bad in that round 1 against the Celtics this last playoffs. I mean, a lot of that probably has to do with just not playing a lot of games leading into the playoffs, but he was really not good and didn't leave Kevin Durant with a lot to work with, and just their team was so depleted in general. It just it didn't look good all around. So I think he's still good enough compared, like, because the question is, let's say somebody who was barely outside of my list, I had him at number 17 as Chris Paul. I would rather have Kyrie than Chris Paul right now. And that's, on the non-chemistry list, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to say, even as good as Chris Paul is, does he give you even, 3/4 of what Kyrie can give you on his best night? And I don't think the answer is yes. So number 12, and this is where I'm going to upset a few people. All right. This is probably my most controversial placement
Julius
on the whole
Randle.
list.
You don't even have to say it. You don't even have to say it.
Jalen Brunson. No, I'm just kidding. Number 12, I'm going to put Devin Booker at number 12.
Booker. D-Book.
I'm going to put him at number 12, man. My issues with Devin Booker have been well documented on this channel. I think Devin Booker, I wouldn't put him in the top 12 if I didn't think he was otherworldly good when he's on. It's to me, it's the same thing as is kind of what I was referring to with Paul George earlier in his career. I think Devin Booker is kind of a get in his own head type of player. And we talked about this in depth last week. So if you really want to hear my thoughts on Devin Booker, go back and watch. I don't know if we put out an individual video of that. The players that have a prove it year coming up. I had a lot of thoughts on Devin Booker. I think this is a big prove it year for D-Book. And I need to see, this is ultimately what it boils down to for Devin Booker. I'm going to sum it up very quickly.
Okay.
We have not seen Devin Booker on an elite team where Chris Paul was not the leader. We have never seen that. And as soon as I see it where Chris Paul is now no longer the leader on the court and Devin Booker is clearly the guy, and they're still a playoff winning team, okay, I'm all the way in. I just don't think that's the case. Like, we haven't seen it yet. I think he's got it in him. It's just when's he going to get the chance to? One, it's probably when Chris Paul retires, but also, is he really going to have that type of leadership mentality? I'm interested to see it at the end of the day. Number 11. God, this is a little controversial too, man, but I'm going to put Jimmy Butler at number 11.
Jimmy Buckets.
It's only controversial because I have a guy above him at number 10, and I'm going to say who it is now. It's Kawhi. I have Kawhi at number 10 and Jimmy Butler at 11. And it's a little hypocritical in the sense that I said the injury concerns for a few of our honorable mention players. Kawhi Leonard hardly plays over the last few years.
Yeah, those concerns.
It's not fair. I will be straight up honest with you. In a certain way, it's not fair. But at the end of the day, I cannot think of anything but that run with the Toronto Raptors. And I know that it was a few years ago. I get it. There are only so many players in the NBA's history who can do what Kawhi Leonard did. I can't let it go because I think he's still that guy. I really do.
Okay.
I really do. And this is a longer discussion for a different stream, one that we just mentioned, our actual team power rankings. I really think the Clippers they're like a top 4 team this season, in my opinion.
Ooh, spicy.
I think they're going to be right in it. I think they're going to be right in it. Kawhi is just different, man. And when it comes down to it, we were talking about, the well-roundedness of a player like Trae Young. There are maybe 3 dudes in the league that are more well-rounded than Kawhi Leonard, if any. He's such a freak defensively. I mean, nobody's ever shot, and this is not even reasonable to bring this up, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's one of my favorite series ever in playoff history. The Heat.
94.
Heat first. 94 Knicks Heat. No. The The Heat's
Knicks
first
Houston.
series, young Kawhi shuts
Yeah.
down LeBron in the playoffs, man. I mean, that just showed everything that Kawhi is and can be at his
Okay.
healthiest. And the reason, let me go back to Jimmy now.
Okay.
The only reason I would put Jimmy, and maybe I should switch them, but I just don't feel like doing it because I think Kawhi is better.
Ooh.
The highest high-end Kawhi Leonard is just like a tier above Jimmy. He's just a tier above. He just is. I'm sorry. I love Jimmy. I wanted to put him in my top 10 really bad. It's just like he's just offensively, he goes through too many stretches where he's just not enough offensively to be like, Kawhi never goes as cold as Jimmy does sometimes, and we'll have these big stretches. I mean, there was a big stretch in the middle of last season where people thought Jimmy had lost a step, including myself. I was worried about it. I love Jimmy.
Yeah.
I was worried about it, but I mean, his playoff run again, it's Jimmy, dude. He is, when it comes down to it, there are not many players you would want in a big minute more than Jimmy Butler. There's just not. He wants it. Number 10. Number 10. Wait, how about we do this?
Yeah, I was going to say
break it
it's
up.
5 and 5. Yeah.
I love it.
Let's
I'm ready.
do that.
Get me off the hot seat. I'm sweating here.
They're sweating right now. All right, let's go to my hot seat. Here we go. Number 15. I actually got your boy that you just talked about, Kawhi Leonard. I think for me,
15, okay.
Number 15, the reason why is because, he's coming back from the injury. Hasn't played what feels like in 2 years almost. And it's just kind of, I want to see a little bit more from him. I think that this has to be a year now where the Clippers, again, it's the expectations of what they signed him for when he originally came to the Clippers, all the perks that he got from joining the Clippers. We need to see that now from Kawhi Leonard. Seeing, is he worth all the stuff that, you move the mountains and heavens for to get him there? I think there was a literal earthquake the day he signed. And so for me, it's time now for Kawhi Leonard to live up to those expectations. And again, I have to put him low on the list because of the injury concerns, and that's why he's number 15 for me. Number 14, I actually have one of the guys that you were critiquing on, and that was Anthony Davis.
Wow, okay.
I think the reason why I have him at 14 is because just like you can't forget that Kawhi Leonard 2014 run, I can't forget the bubble. I can't forget Bubble Davis, because Bubble Davis, again, Anthony Davis, especially even the year where he was a Pelican before he got traded to the Lakers, maybe he was trying to show off for the Lakers. His game that year, the year that he played that year, I have never seen a more dominant player who can dribble like a guard and also, be a big and handle the post-ups like Anthony Davis can. I know that bigs are getting a lot better at it. I've made a Victor Wembanyama series who potentially could have that ability as well. Evan Mobley's in that category. There's a lot of guys who have that ability, but with Anthony Davis, I think it's special. Again, there's a lot of criticisms. I think the injuries are fair to criticize. I think his inconsistencies and availability on the court, again, a lot of things you can criticize in that instant. But what I think, for me, Anthony Davis is going to prove this year the haters wrong, just like Kawhi Leonard for you in your top 15 is going to prove the haters wrong.
I hope you're right.
I see it, man. I think that with Anthony Davis healthy, with him being the focal point of the offense, this is now the time for Anthony Davis to be that guy. And I think he will be moving forward again. I had to put him a little lower on the list just because of the injury concerns. So that's why he's at my number 14. Number 13, I got Devin Booker. Just for you,
dude, that makes me so happy you put it. Maybe I should move him lower too, just out of pure spite. No, I'm gonna keep him right.
No, but I think Devin Booker, again, we talked about it, me and you. We've had our critiques about Devin Booker. We talked about him not being that guy. Sean, our resident moderator of the channel, is a huge hater of Devin Booker. Continues to call him not that guy. But I think we can't forget the fact that he is a really good basketball player. He's a great scorer.
100%.
Again, he needs to improve on the other things that I think could help his game out, but I'm not ready to give up on Booker just yet. He is a top 15 NBA player to me. I think that this last 2 years kind of proved it, even though in the bubble, or sorry, not the bubble, but again, the antics are a little bit frustrating at times. I still like Devin Booker here at 13. I think he'll be a good player. Now can we see him carry the team with, a signed DeAndre Ayton moving forward? Number 12.
As long as you don't put any mascots in front of him, he's
yeah. mascots, he's going to rage. Number 12, I have Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
I think the reason why Kyrie gets a lot of hate and a lot of criticism is because of his what's that free nature, something of that effect, where he's just his own guy, and I think that frustrates a lot of people because he doesn't do things the way that others would see it. Right? We talk about the mandates, and we talked about him with the social justice reform and not informing the team that he's playing there. I just think like with everything aside from that, Kyrie Irving as a basketball player is one of the best to ever do it. Dribbling, scoring, like the way that he just moves and the way that he's so crafty is a stuff of dreams. Like if any player could have at least a little bit of that handle, a little bit of that creativity of scoring, I think they would instantly shoot up to like top 10, top 7 just for that alone. But again, the injury concerns and the availability of Kyrie Irving brings him down the list, even though this guy has a lot of potential if he would just stay healthy and also, not, kind of, stayed in line a little bit. But again, I think Kyrie Irving gets a lot of slack for that, but he's got to be in the top 15, man. He's just that good of a player and really should be in the top 75 of all time. I think that was more of a stunt, in my opinion. Number 11. Also, I think where you have your guy as well, I got Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler at 11. I think it just makes sense. Again, continues to prove every year the last couple of years, even in the bubble year and the year before, he's continuously a good player. He now has his extensions. I think he's going to, gain some youth from that. I think he's going to be an ultimate player. And so I'm excited to see him play this year. Again, I want to see what the Miami Heat can do this year. This is going to be kind of a new team, I would say, in terms of they're finally going to get some of the guys who were injured to finally play. So I'm excited to see that. So that's why I got Jimmy Butler at number 11.
Okay. I like it. I'm interested. I find it actually pretty interesting because we have almost identically the same, 11 through 15, just in different places.
Yeah.
You have AD instead of PG. And I would argue that AD and PG are kind of in a similar position, kind of.
Are they both in a prove it year?
I think PG is in less of a prove it year because he's had so little to work with the last season and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think AD is, we talked about it at length last week. I think he's a huge prove it year,
Mm-hmm.
I think he really needs it. But I agree. I just think that this coming into this season, they do both need a good year. I think there's just more pressure on AD to really deliver something special this year.
Yeah.
Like Tar Heel Nation said, 100% chance AD never reaches the heights of that bubble run ever again. See, that's why I put him a little bit lower personally. I think he has let's go to Kawhi as a comparison instead. I think he has a bit harder road to reach that pinnacle that AD was at in that run. I think his run to get back to that is harder than Kawhi to get back to what he was at. That's just me, though. I think Kawhi is just kind of he's a freak. He's just built so weird. And so is AD. He's the original unicorn to a lot of people. So it's kind of up for your own personal taste at that point. So I gave you all the way through 10. I gave you, so I'm at 9.
Yep, 9. 9.
Oh man, number 9. I'm gonna have to put at number 9 Ja Morant. I can't put him any higher than that. I like Ja a lot. I think he's capable of being a top 5 player. Kind of similar to, and I'm not just comparing them just for their play styles necessarily, but similar to that run that Allen Iverson went on when he took the Sixers to the championship. I think Ja has it in him to do something special like that. He is a very young dude. He's only 22. He's only going to get better, but a lot of the concerns that I've mentioned for other people are there with Ja. The defense comes and goes. It's not as great as you might hope it would be, but he is small, so he has that defense going for him. It's just he needs to stay healthy. He needs to play a style of basketball, change it just a little bit. Like, I love the way Ja plays. I don't worry about it the way everybody talks about it because he seems to, bounce back up so much. But for the longevity of his career, the way he plays, he does need to stay on the court more often. He really does. And it is a little worrisome, I would say. We talked about this a lot in the season last year, but Memphis responded really well every time he was hurt.
Yeah.
They played just as well, if not better, at some stretches of the season, and that means something. Like at the end of the day, that does mean something. How much you're actually impacting the winning of your team has to count for something. But I do think he's a top player in the league.
So you're in agreement with all the fans that I think what was it? I think it was like some of the people were saying like, oh well, they're better without Ja. Are you in agreement with that? Are they better without Ja?
I don't think they're better without Ja. I think that's absolute lunacy to say that. I'm not even implying necessarily that that's true. I'm more just saying, like, I think the guys above him directly impact their team's winning much more than he does. You know what I mean? I don't think that's not saying he is not important to their team. I don't think they can win a championship without him by any stretch. I don't even think they're contenders without him.
Yeah.
They might have a good record without him, but that doesn't mean they're actually going to be like legitimate competition for the top teams when it comes down to the stretch. I think they need him to be that guy.
Okay.
Number 8. Oh man.
Ocho.
This is now we're getting into the real tough times.
It's got to be Julius Randle.
Number 8 is RJ Barrett. No, number 8. Number 8. God. Number 8, I'm going to go with my heart. This is what I wrote on my list, and I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
I'm sticking with it. I put Jason Tatum at number 8.
Jason Tatum.
I wanted JT to be higher. I did. Like, I by all accounts, and another thing we talked a lot about in the playoffs last season, like to me, he was really trying to put himself in that top 5 discussion. He was really trying. Mm-hmm. And then the finals happened. And there was concern. I know not just for Celtics fans, but for everybody. Anybody who is a big JT fan, whether it was injury, whatever it was, he really disappeared when it mattered the most for the Celtics, and that has to count for something. Has to count for something. So to me, that has to bump him down to 8. I think he is another guy that, like, of all these dudes who could find themselves in the top 5 come end of season, I think he's probably number 1 on the list. Like, he has every tool he needs. It's just, can he continue to develop as a playmaker? Can he, get the rest of his team involved when he needs to? But also,
oh my God, I'm sorry. I looked at Tar Heel Nation's comment. Tatum is just. You said Tatum is Chris Middleton with pretty privilege. That's just toxic. Absolutely toxic. Absolutely toxic.
That's an A+ comment, Tar Heel Nation. That's funny. The biggest thing, not only just the playmaking, but for me, another thing, I know I keep saying this, we've talked about it a lot, but his shot decision making, I would love to see take a step forward this season. He just takes too many of these wonky, like super long mid-range shots off one foot. It's just, you're so talented. You're so talented. You have all the tools to just be unstoppable offensively. Play like you're unstoppable, because if he did, he would be. He has everything he needs to be like some of the guys that are above him on the list. Mm-hmm. So he is my number 8. Number 7 is LeBron.
Whoa!
Number 7 is LeBron. I'm just gonna let it sit there. It's hard.
The Limickies are gonna come out for you, man.
I have a shrine devoted to this man in my home, okay? It pains me to put him at number 7. It pains me. And by any accounts, because I'm going to address a comment that I saw in the chat, also from our resident crazy person, Tar Heel Nation. No way you can have LeBron over PG-13 in 2022. You're out of your mind. LeBron is borderline a top 5 player still. He can do everything on the court. If he was not playing with a bunch of 35-year-old dudes, which is funny because he's almost 40, if he wasn't playing with a bunch of dudes who actually play their age, he would still be right in the thick of the championship race. Like, it's just that simple. Whether that's his fault or not is up for debate. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're talking about, though. We're just talking about purely one player. How good are they? LeBron can do anything. He can do anything he wants on the court. And realistically, he's one of the very few players probably ever in the history of basketball who has mastered almost every part of basketball. He can play any position he wants to play, and he can teach the players on his team who play that position how to play it better than they do already. So that, a lot of the reason why Chris Paul would be in the top 20 at this point is that kind of thing, but LeBron is also still borderline a 30-point per game scorer. The reason that I dock LeBron and put him at 7 is one, you have to hold his team's success against him a little bit. That it was a really bad season. Okay. They did win a championship a couple seasons ago, but that's not now. They were really bad last season, and he at points had clearly given up on the team, and you have to hold that against players. Like, I'm going to keep that energy for even my favorite player. I have to, or I would be a hypocrite like a lot of the people we call out. It has to go against him. The other thing for LeBron, and the reason why I dock him just a little bit, is his defense. Defense, I still think on his best day, if he is truly locked in, LeBron is an elite defender. I still think he has it in him. The problem is that's like 1 to 5 games a season at this point. He just doesn't really want to do it because he's trying to extend every minute he can on the court. So I'm going to put him at number 7. And to cap off my 6 through 10.
Cap it off. It off.
Oh, man. This is, God, dude, I keep saying
RJ
it, but another controversial pick. Kevin Knox. I'm gonna put Kevin Durant at number 6.
KD, not even in the top 5.
We gotta put him top 6. No, dude. Oh,
dude. Too late. He's there.
I'm putting him at 6. I'm gonna put him at 6.
Too late.
I'm gonna put him at 6. And this is why. Offensively, KD is absolutely unguardable, unstoppable, best offensive player in the league, in my opinion. He is the best offensive player in the league. Defensively, Kevin Durant has flirted with being a very good defensive player a few times, especially in the last couple seasons with the Warriors, which you could argue was more a matter of the players around him and, the way that their team was shaped and how they worked. That made him a better defender? Probably.
Yeah.
He's just not that great of a defender considering how amazing he is everywhere else. But again, this is like we're nitpicking a little bit, but that's kind of the name of the game when you get this high. Here's my rationale. At the end of the day, I think the 5 guys I have ahead of him coming into this season, I think their best game is better than KD's best game right now. And I think that is a lot of people are going to take offense to that. A lot of people are going to take offense to it. But again, just like LeBron, got to hold team success, some accountability as far as that's concerned. And I think his team has been pretty disappointing a couple seasons in a row. And whether that was his fault or not, again, is up for debate. But if you're the best player on your team, I think you need to fight through adversity. And, they got eliminated in round 1. And it's that simple. And the other guys ahead of him, I just think are better both ways of, basketball. Your turn. Your turn to set the internet ablaze, Bernie.
All right. Well, let's see if I can. Number 10, I also got someone that's in your 10 range as well, and I got John Morant at 10. Again, I think that he's a young player. I love his game. I think everything about him is exciting. I think the critique and the criticism about shooting the ball has been a big issue with him, and I think that he will address it this offseason. I think he's starting to become one of my favorite athletes just due to the fact that I think he is charismatic. He's a great athlete, and I just think that all that accounts to me. He just reminds me of a really young Allen Iverson coming into the league, trying to start his own thing. And that's why I've always been excited with a guy like John Morant. Again, I think that his charisma will take him very far. I like what he's been doing with the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that the Grizzlies, man, can do a good job. I'm excited for the Grizzlies, man. Let's see here. Kawhi top 6 to 10. You crazy, man? He didn't even play a single game.
Yeah, I stand by it. I put Kawhi at number 10, and that's just, we're going into this season like I said, I even said it when we were talking about him. Maybe you're just hopping in, Oscar. I do think it's a little irrational, but it's just based on the history of how we've seen Kawhi play, what he is at his peak, and by all accounts, he was just about healthy enough to play in the playoffs last season. It seems like a team choice just in terms of why don't we just wait one last half season and get you back here 100%.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna show it for sure.
But yeah, going back to my list again, John Morant. I think he's going to be the future of the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, will be, but I think they're going to do a good job of building around him. I've loved what the Memphis Grizzlies have done to continuously throughout their history have done to build around their star players. And I think you'll see that again with John Morant moving forward. What do we have? Number 9. I got my man. I got Ice Trey. I think Ice Trey in the top 10. He's kind of proven to me, kind of watching him, seeing him play. He is that guy. I think that, again, you talk about the pass. Yeah, you talk about the passing ability, man. This guy has got tremendous passing ability, man. It to me, it's just kind of one of those things to look at. He does everything the right way. He's a phenomenal scorer, but more of a great passer. And when his shot's not falling, when he is not acting like the number one guy, his passing ability gets him there. And I just think that this year will be the year that the Hawks finally kind of overachieve. Maybe not overachieve, but they definitely do a lot better than the previous years where I felt like they've underachieved to some degree, because they really should be in the top 5 conversation. But this year, I think with DeJounte, it'll definitely help. I think Trae Young will do it, man. I've loved his ability, and I think that he'll continue to grow and develop, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for him for this year.
I love your committed belief to Trae. I really love it. It makes me happy. I don't necessarily agree, obviously. What did I put him at, 13?
Yeah, I think so.
Not that far off.
14.
Yeah, we're not that far off. I mean, he's definitely one of the 15 best players in the league.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Next on my list, I got number 8. I got Joel Embiid. Where's he at? There he is.
At number 8?
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to a guy like Joel Embiid, he is a great, phenomenal player. I'm not going to take anything from that. Offensively, defensively, does everything great. The problem with Joel Embiid, year after year, ever since Ben Simmons was a rookie with him, he has yet to be healthy enough for a big run in the playoffs. It seems that every year he garners another injury, and it continues to be a problem for the 76ers because they really should be a really good team. But I think
they are.
But they should be, in Eastern Conference Finals and going to the NBA Finals rather than kind of where they are right now, which is trying to kind of give everything. They traded Ben Simmons, a young player. Again, I've had my gripes with Ben Simmons, so I'm not trying to anything about that, but more so in terms of you trade away a young athlete that you had as your guy, for obvious reasons or the situation at hand, but bring him in for James Harden now. I think this has to be a prove-it year for Joel Embiid to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. There's no more excuses for Joel Embiid. He is one of the best players in the league. It's time to act like it and get to the finals, at least the Eastern Conference Finals, because I think that he is that good and that talented. It's just the injuries year after year in the playoffs, the durability situation for me is what leads me to believe that Joel Embiid off the top 5 list or even off the top 7 list, because he really should be a lot better than what he's shown in the court.
Okay.
Sure
we'll talk about it more, obviously, in a minute.
Yeah. Number 7, I also have Jason Tatum on this list. Again, I think that he has improved every year. Again, I was frustrated with him in the bubble year. I've had my critiques about him. Again, I'm hard on my Celtics players because I believe that this team is really that good to get there. And so for me, I think this year for Jason Tatum is going to be a huge do the simple things perfect. Because I think, like you talked about with his shots, he likes to do a lot of these moves that, that he's worked on with his trainer. But I want to see him evolve from that. And again, you saw it in the series leading up until the NBA Finals. When Jason Tatum is playing the way that he does, there's no stopping him from being, one of the best players in the league. Like he's borderline there, almost close to the top 5. He's, it's kind of trying to grab the brass ring, to kind of quote a wrestling term. WWF or AEW. Like he is right there for me. I think that he can do it. It's just now, without Kevin Durant and the trade rumors of him going there, with him now officially kind of staying with Jaylen Brown, it's time to figure out a way to play together. And this will be, of course, done by Ime Udoka and try to figure out what they can do. But they need to figure out right away how to get those two guys to play together and play together well, because that's what's going to stop Jason Tatum from taking that next step. And so I'm hoping that they can find a way to play together. I'm hoping that they can train together at some point to kind of figure out the chemistry, to figure out how each guy's going to play and complement one another. And so Jason Tatum misses out on the top 5 for me at number 7, I believe. And then number 6, this one might frustrate you a little bit. Where is he at? Don't tell me he's not on this list. I'll be very upset.
A borderline top 6 player not on the list. There's no
there
way.
he is. There he is. I got Jokic.
What?
Jokic.
No shot, dude.
I got Jokic.
No shot. All right, I'm triggered. You're right. I told
you I was going to trigger you.
It.
All right. So for me, for
Number
Jokic,
6 for the back-to-back MVP. Here we go.
My thing with Jokic, he's a great player. I think he's an awesome guy. Obviously, a second-round guy getting an MVP never, obviously has been rare. Even back-to-back MVPs, the rarest of the rare. But for me, for Jokic, it's about time to win some basketball games. And again, it could be due to the injuries of his teammates, but he needs to figure out a way to make it a competitive series, because I think he is that guy. My thing is he going to be the guy for the Nuggets, or will he get traded? And I think in order to move up in the list, to be in the top 2, top 3 conversation for me, he might have to move teams to do that. He might have to move to a team where he can, still play the same way that he does, but figure out a way to get other guys involved. And so for me, as much as it frustrates you and as much as you cry out for Jokic, I got him at number 6.
I will tell you, I genuinely did not see that coming. That was like a Shyamalan twist as far as I'm concerned. That came out of nowhere. I like it, though. I'm interested.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
We need to talk about Jokic just more often on this channel in general. I feel like we don't really talk about him enough. Let's swing back on him in a minute. Swing back on him.
You want to go your top 5?
Let's go for it. Here's
all
my
right.
top 5.
Let's do this. Let's go. Let's save everything but your last 2. Can you?
Okay.
Everything but your last 2. So do the 3, and then the last 2 we'll leave up for the viewers to see which team, which starting 5 would win.
Okay, let's do it. All right, my number 5 is Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid, I agree with you. A lot of the things you said, and this is one of the hard things. And these lists are subjective. Like at the end of the day, there's no way to put one of these lists definitively together. It really comes down to your opinion, right? One of my biggest criteria, just in terms of like picking any player in terms of where I'm going to put them, is you have to look at the faults of every player, right? And his is in line with a lot of the guys we've talked about. AD and him, the injury stuff is pretty much the same, right? If anything, AD it's right there. I almost said AD plays more, but that's not true over the last few seasons. Yeah. The thing with Joel Embiid, and this is what I was getting to, his highest high in terms of what a single game of Joel Embiid can be is top 5 in the league right now. There's only one dude in the league, I would say, that can play better defense and be as offensively dominant in one single game as Joel Embiid. And spoiler, he's my number 1 player. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's my number 1. Joel Embiid is an absolute destructive force. I think if he was healthy all the time, I think he's top 3. I would actually push one of my top 3 players out for him if he was healthy all the time. He's just not. So you do have to dock him. I think a lot of it comes down to just weird rosters, weird teams. Beyond his injuries as a single player, which is what this list is, I think he's, to me, undeniably a top 5 right now. I would take him over KD.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people would disagree with that. I really do. KD doesn't give you half of the defense that Joel Embiid does. He's an elite rim protector, but he can also move because in being as big as he is, he's 7'2", 7'1", like 280 pounds. He's huge. There's just not many guys that give you that. Number 4 for me is Luka. I really went back and forth with him at number 3 and number 4, but we need to see it for a longer stretch of time from him, like a full season consistently in shape, being the guy that we know he is. And you and I have been on Luka forever. It's well documented. I need to see the defense just a step above what it is. The defense has to go up a step. But, I mean, everybody has said everything there is to be said about Luka. Offensively, at the age he's at, there's literally been like 1 or 2 guys ever, if any, that have even been close to matching what he's been in the league. And he's only going to get better. He really is. And, you know, something we're going to have to talk about soon too is like this in shape Luka that we've seen this offseason. Is that going to carry over? And is this finally the MVP season? Is this it? And I would argue that it could be it. You know, I think this guy's got all the tools. The biggest thing in his favor, and this is the reason why he's a top 5 guy for me, he is absolutely the best in the biggest moments, and it's undeniable. You know, he plays better when the lights are brightest. He gets to be the best version of himself in the biggest games, and we see it every single season. It's never a fluke. It never will be a fluke. That's just who he is, and he's going to keep being better in the playoffs, presumably for the next 15 years, I hope. Number 3, Steph Curry.
Number 3, Steph.
Oh, I'm kidding. Number 3 is Jokic.
Jokic. Okay.
Number 3 is Jokic. And I went back and forth with this. I really debated. I had Jokic at number 2 for a while. But I do think he's 3. And again, it has to be the team's success. You have to look at that. The problem for me is just that it's obviously not him. It's obviously the roster. You know, all the best players on his team have been injured for the last 2 seasons straight. He cannot catch a break as far as having a good roster. And I would argue for Jokic in particular, of players in the last 5 years, there is nobody who has done more with less than Nikola Jokic. There is no player in the NBA who has done more and had more success as a team or, you know, as an individual on a team that still ends up making it to the playoffs than Jokic does. And realistically, if you put Jokic with any other top 25 star, they're a conference finals team. They really are. And I think that if they had been healthy 2 seasons ago, the season that Jamal Murray hurt himself, I thought they were a conference finals team that season. So I have him in my top 3. Bernie, what's your 5 through 3?
Okay. Let's go 5. Number 5, I got Kevin Durant. Again, one of the best scorers of the basketball. Again, the injury concerns do have to start coming up with him just because of the fact that he does get injured quite a bit. Obviously missed the year prior to a foot injury. This year had a little bit of some injuries as well. My thing with him is that I still think in his best day, he's an elite player. I think the past stuff has to come into account. I think he does have that innate ability. Again, you talked about it in our Prove It Year video. He does have a lot to prove this year. Obviously, with the noise that he made about wanting a trade, maybe that was all smokescreen stuff. But either way, he needs to prove that he was worth the commotion, that teams are ready to give up their youth players just to bring him on the team for a chance at winning a championship. The more I thought about it, I kind of told you no, but thinking about it more, it had to be a yes now. Because again, I think that Kevin Durant has that ability to be a top 5 player. Scoring the rock and running offense for him is probably a coach's dream because of how many different ways you can get Kevin Durant the ball in many different situations, and he'll score the bucket no matter what. And that's, to me, why I think he is top 5. But just like any year, he can drop down or he could go up depending on what goes on for the Brooklyn Nets. This has to be, for the Brooklyn Nets' sake, this has to be a championship type of year for them. It has to be that run, or otherwise it's looking like it's a dud.
Yeah, would you argue it has to be for him in particular? Like in terms of
it does.
Yeah, I think so too.
It does him and the team.
Yeah, he needs it so bad. He needs a good year.
Because if they're gonna, they're gonna continue to give Kevin Durant what he wants, right? So if you're gonna continue to give him what he wants, you're gonna have to return the favor by playing well. I mean, you have to. I mean, again, Chris Haynes on the Some Dude podcast with Cuffs the Legend talked about it, that Kevin Durant's trying to fill that void. And that void is probably winning a championship on your own. So I think this has to be a prove it year for Durant. He's going to be one of the hottest on the hot seats of players besides Anthony Davis, like you talked about earlier in that video, because those two guys have to show that they are the number one options on the team and can guide their teams to that NBA Finals. And so that's why Kevin Durant for me is top 5. Again, the price of being a great player, but also needs to, have that situation where, he needs to, perform a lot better.
Let me just ask you, just out of pure curiosity, all right?
Okay.
You're building a team right now. You get to build your dream team of like you get any of these guys, but you have to pick. These are your 2 options.
Yes.
Let's just say, just for the sake of, adding one little layer to it, not just for this season, but let's say the next 3 seasons. You're picking between KD and Jokic. Who are you taking? You want to win a championship over the next 3 season stretch. Who are you taking?
I'm taking KD.
It's like not even close?
It's close, but I'm taking KD.
Okay. I'm just curious because to me, I'm taking Jokic. Obviously, it's more.
Sorry, it's Sean.
I just like what Sean's saying. Can't wait to see where. Oh yeah, dude, he's top 0 for me.
He does deserve to be on the list of honorable mentions. I will tell you that, Sean.
You think he's a? We'll come back to Sabonis. We'll discuss Sabonis. I don't know about that.
Sabonis is the final topic.
Sabonis is the final. He's the final layer of this iceberg that we need to uncover. It's what the people want. I just think Jokic is at this point in his career. I think he's more well-rounded than Kevin Durant is. But I'm definitely in a group of people who would get absolutely flamed for that take. Regardless of what you think about KD. But one of the reasons I asked you about the chemistry part of this equation before we even started this little exercise we're in is because I think it affects Kevin Durant as far as I'm concerned, where I would take him. What did I put Kevin Durant as? I had him as number 6 on my list, I believe, of my final.
Let me check. Yes, you had him at 6.
I would probably, I would move him. I'd consider moving him back 1 or 2 spaces on my list if we're discussing the chemistry, just because like we see what Kevin Durant has been these last couple seasons, what it's meant to Brooklyn and what their fortunes have turned into. And that to me is a player like, let's say my career is riding on it. I have to choose between these top amazing players. I think that matters in the equation personally, but for the sake of the list, you're not wrong. I mean, KD is, there's not many people who are as offensively as just freakish as he is.
Yeah. And then number 4 is going to be one of our guys. We've been high on him this whole time he's been drafted, and that's Luka Doncic.
Wow. Where is LeBron on your list, Bernie? Where is LeBron on your list? I thought I was the biggest stan. I'm ready.
But no, the reason why I had to put Luka there at as in the top 4 for me is because I think that he, like, watching him play, the change of pace that he has to the game, I think there's a lot about him that coaches are going to unlock if he does get the right team. And again, it comes back to that conversation that we had and why I kind of dinged Jokic in that sense. But I think this is also kind of a year where Doncic has to prove it. Again, he did get to the Western Conference Finals, I believe, right, against the Warriors in that final because they beat the Phoenix Suns. And I think that that's a step in the right direction. And that's the reason why I have to put him higher on the list, because I think that Doncic can do it. I think that, again, is Christian Wood going to be the answer for Doncic in them? Probably not. But what is going to be exciting for them is figuring out for Luka how to, again, get that MVP. Because I think that, again, you talked about the in-shape Luka. He does have to stay in shape in order for them to be a team that obviously gets into the playoffs, but more so in a team that contends for the Western Conference Finals. And so for me, I think Luka has that ability. If he can kind of continue, again, the durability questions have to come into play. but I think he's shown it last year that he's kind of committed to it, and I think that it's going to be a lifestyle change for him. And watching him play, man, he is probably one of the best change of pace guys I've ever seen play the game. And he's only what, 21, 22 right now, maybe even
22.
22.
He might be 21. I'll look it up. You keep going.
But he's going to be one of the best players, man. I can already see it in him. I can see that he is going to continue that elevation. And again, as soon as he gets a little bit more consistent with the 3-point shot, that to me is going to be the awakening where Luka's going to win not only MVPs, but also championships. I don't know if there's any.
20... No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we talked about players not in the top 5 that could move up into the top 5. Now we have to talk about players not in the top 2 that could move into the top 2. Luka is and this is the one thing I'll say about Luka before we move on to our top 3s.
Mm-hmm.
There is a season that is going to come from Luka, all right? And I'm going to prognosticate here for just a second. Sometime in the next 5 to 7 years, Luka is going to have one of the probably 5 greatest NBA seasons of all time. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
Statistically speaking, he will have one of the 5 best seasons of all time. He has literally all of the tools to put up like a 35-point per game season.
Mm-hmm.
It might be this season for all we know, right? The rules only go more in favor of the way Luka plays every season. Like the way that the game is played, the way the NBA wants to sell the game and wants to play it, he is the guy, right? That they kind of model the game around, whether they mean to or not. It just suits his play style. I just think of all the players active right now who could put up, let's just say, a historic top 5 campaign ever. He is that guy. And I really, really, truly think he's going to do it. Whether it's going to amount in championships, which I also think it will, you're not that good in playoffs and big games, and it never turns into anything. I don't really think there's very many players in NBA history who have shown that they have it in those moments and didn't end up pulling it off at some point. I think he will pull it off. It's just my prognostication says it's coming. Somebody prepare yourself, and I will be there to tell you I told you so when it happens.
Exactly. All right, you ready for number 3?
Let's do it. This dude, oh my God, hold on, I'm ready. Let me brace myself.
It's got to be Marcus Smart. Right there on the list. No.
Water all over my screen.
But if we're doing this the right way, it's got to be LeBron James. Again, I think, just think about this. The numbers that he put up with that old Riddle team has got to be something that probably will never be done in a while. A guy at the age of 38 years old carrying a bunch of guys that, again, some of them are good players individually, but what I'm not seeing from them currently for me when it comes to like LeBron James is more so the fact that he's not going to be a guy that carries a team anymore, clearly, but still being able to put up those numbers that he did, averaging, 25. I think this year he averaged 30. That is absolutely ridiculous. And for how long he's done it and the longevity for me has to play a factor into it. LeBron James has to be in the conversation for top 5 because, again, I think this year has to be a year where Anthony Davis moves from the 11 to 15 range where I have him and has to move up into the 6 to 10. Has to move up into the top 5 for me. Because in order for them to be a championship winning team, a team that, again, wins the championships like they're supposed to, that to me has to be the big thing. So I have to put LeBron James at 3. I think that, again, he's not the same guy that he was 2 years ago. In the bubble, I would have probably put him a lot higher. Probably would have put him 1 or 2. But I think 3 is probably the right range. Again, he is 38 years old. He is getting older. So as you start to age, it's starting to decline just a little bit, but it's not to a point where it's, to a detriment. So I got him in the top 3. Or sorry, top 3.
I will say in my chemistry alternate universe list of more my opinion, I had him at 5.
You had him at 5?
Because in my heart of hearts, I agree with you. Like in my heart of hearts, I would want LeBron in somewhere in the top 5 picks. Like if he's available and I'm picking one of those guys, like, there's only a few of them that I would say undoubtedly are better right now at this point in their careers. But even if you're taking just that stretch of time where AD was hurt, one of the many last season, but the one in particular where LeBron slid into the 5 and played center for a few weeks and was just, he was just godlike. Like there's no other way to put it. He was absolutely unstoppable on all fronts of what he was doing, and he was playing out of position, somewhere he had never played in his whole career, realistically. So, Tar Heel Nation, what are you saying? LeBron is so cooked on D. I respect his offensive package at his age. Anyone can blow by the king these days.
Here's what I'll tell you about this. Yes, he will get blown by on defense, but he has to reserve those minutes on his legs to the offensive end, because Lord knows they're not going to be able to score the ball if LeBron passes to them. And again, I know that the excuse of the players and things like that, but you're passing to guys that are not making open shots. That is a hard thing to do. And so I can't defend necessarily the defense at times. He's just, again, has to take so much pressure on the offensive end that just allows him to, or doesn't allow him, but he needs rest. He's not, like we talked about, he's not 27 years old anymore. He's 38. He needs his rest. He's not going to play. We talked about this in a previous segment with Gilbert Arenas talking about him playing 40 something minutes. He's not going to play that anymore. That's just not his game. He's not going to play 40 minutes of great both sides of the ball. He has to rest at some point because he has to carry the offensive load to such an extreme that it hurts him defensively. He's a liability.
True. And one thing in his defense, too, I would argue, is the IQ he brings on the court in terms of getting dudes in the right position. Look at what happened in the 2020 bubble. Look at that. That team defensively was absolutely annihilating teams. And LeBron, I would argue, was almost just as cooked defensively as he is now. The difference is that he had better defensive players that he could help put in the right position, schematically, and just tell these dudes where to go. He was working with absolutely nothing defensively last season. So, one of the things that is totally, under talked about is how much teams scheme to cover up their weaknesses, right? Look at think of Dallas. Dallas is completely offensively built around Luka's skills and everything he can do, which is pretty much everything. Defensively, their goal is to cover up Luka as much as possible, right? And he's not a terrible defender, but he's definitely not a very good defender on most nights. KD is definitely not like an elite defender. A lot of these guys aren't. The difference is that they have better teammates around them in terms of putting them in the right position. And one, their athleticism at this point in their age can cover up, some defensive inefficiencies. So I put LeBron, what did I have him at? I think I put him at 7 or 8.
7.
So put him at 7. Like I would argue if anybody's wrong with LeBron, I think it's me. I would probably say Bernie is closer to right than I am. So the only reason I put him there is I just had to keep the team success energy. I have to keep it. That's one of my things. Like, you can't not make the playoffs to me and be a top 5 player. But if anybody should be, it's probably him. It probably is.
Yeah. All right, Pete, you ready to move on? We'll do 1, 1, and 1. Just kind of.
Let's do it.
All right. Who's your number 2?
Number 2, I think I mentioned it earlier. I gave a little spoiler. Steph Curry is my number 2. It's for me. He's arguably the player and I'll be honest about it. I've given him the least respect of any great player, I think, probably ever. And a lot of that just has to do with the team he's on. I'm not necessarily the biggest Steph Curry fan in general, but he's undeniable. Like, he is undeniably an all-time great. He's undeniably one of the most important players in the league currently if you want to win basketball games. If you want to win basketball games with a team of complete players and not just like a bunch of borderline G League players, like, because that's the difference, right? And I would use this, a different version of me, a less evolved version of me would use this as a criticism of Steph Curry, right? And I think it's pretty rational if you're only half looking, but 2 seasons ago, the season that, or was it 3 seasons ago, the season where the Warriors ended up picking Wiseman. I guess that was 3 seasons ago that they were that bad is what I'm looking for. You would argue that a lot of that has to, like, why wouldn't we say the same things about him that we did about LeBron? And it's fair to a certain extent, but that team was very purposefully trying to be bad. They definitely were not trying to win a lot of games, and that sounds silly when you put Steph Curry out there, but he didn't end up playing, like, I think he played the least amount of games of his entire career that season. When you have Steph Curry and you have a team that does not consist of, 30% G League players, you're going to make it far into the playoffs because of what he does to the other team. Like, he is probably the ultimate unschemable offensive player just because of how much he opens up the court for everybody else he plays with. And that's why, like, the Warriors teams with him and KD were just absolutely unstoppable, is because you have Steph doing what he does, which is completely space the floor, like the ultimate floor spacer, right? And then you have the guy that is the best with that space, and that was KD at the time, right? So my biggest question is, would I have put him this high if they didn't win the championship? And obviously, I think the answer is no, but they did. So, you're winning currently. They're one of the favorites to win the championship again this season, and all of that is it orbits Steph Curry and what he's good at. So, top 2 for me.
All right, let's go to my number 2, which is actually kind of funny. My number 2 is actually Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Wow, we flippy flopped on this one.
Yeah, we're gonna flip flop on this one, and we'll kind of go back and forth with one another because obviously, I'll finish out my list. I got Curry 1. I'll finish out Pete's list as well. He's got Giannis at number 1. I'm assuming that might unless it's Sabonis or RJ Barrett.
Sabonis. No, I'm just kidding. It's Giannis.
Okay, so the reason why I'm gonna flip flop them more so for me is that I think, kind of continuing on your Steph Curry point, we have never seen a point guard like Steph Curry, the way that, again, offensively, the way that you were able to kind of use him, the way that the Warriors, again, you could talk about it being a system. We talked about this before. I know a lot of people like to bring up like the Tom Brady thing. Obviously people said that he was a systems quarterback. Here's the thing that you need to know about Steph Curry. He changes the game dramatically from the way that you have to be looking out for him almost 100% of the time. It's no longer a situation where, it's not going to be like Steph Curry is just a spot up shooter. He moves with a purpose. And that's the reason why, like, for me, when I see his movements, when I see the way that he screens for other guys so he can get himself open, the way that he doesn't necessarily stay in one place, the way that he uses his smarts and creativity to create those layups that he's able to make, those high arcing ones. Wiggins better, Sean. All right, we need to stop this nonsense. But again, talking about Curry, I think that this guy is generational talent, and he's not. And again, he's not the most athletic guy, right? We talk more so in terms of his speed, his dunking ability. He doesn't have any of that. But what he does have is probably one of the best brains at decision making that I've ever seen in a point guard ever. And that has to account for something when it comes to the game of basketball. Again, he has the mindset and the IQ of a LeBron James, but with the shooting ability of like a young Ray Allen. Hitting those threes and everything like that. Reggie Miller and Peja Stojakovic combined. That's how good of a shooter Steph Curry is. And with his ability to shoot the ball, it gives him the ability to do a lot of different things as well. And so that's why I have Steph Curry at number 1. I think we can talk about Giannis together. I'll let you go first on Giannis.
Let me just wrap up Steph Curry real quick. 2 things for Steph. On my chemistry list, I actually had him tied at 1 with Giannis. I don't know. That makes my other list a little bit more complicated. I'm glad you decided anti-chemistry because it complicates things a little bit.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I think that goes so underrated about Steph Curry is just his selflessness. Like, there is nobody who has been as big of a superstar in terms of like what they can do, how good they are, but been as much of a glue guy as Steph Curry. Does that make sense? Like, he's both of those things. Usually a glue guy is like What's a good example of a glue guy from the last few seasons? Maybe like, dude, that's kind of tough. There's not a lot of good glue guys in the NBA nowadays. But
JJ
that's,
Barea.
yes, yeah, JJ Barea, I guess, is a good example. Somebody who's not necessarily ever going to be a focal point of the team, not somebody
Mhm.
you're really super concerned about, but it's just what he brings to the mentality of the team, what he does as far as, impacting just the mentality of everybody on and off the court. I think Steph Curry might be unmatched in
Mhm.
terms of bringing a positive mentality to a team, that camaraderie, winning spirit. Like he is like the ultimate team player. And it's something that as I've gotten older, as I've kind of, matured and like I said a minute ago, evolved a little bit, it's something I've learned to really
Mhm.
appreciate about Steph. Like he really gets the most out of his teammates while also being just seemingly one of the best guys to play with in the NBA,
Mhm.
which I think
Yeah.
is something that needs a little bit more credit, like in this era of player empowerment in terms of, guys purposefully just, gaining weight. Sorry, James Harden. Not wanting to play for their team, Ben Simmons, not wanting to get the vax, Kyrie, all these things, right? We dunk on all these guys and we talk about people doing things wrong, but then you have Steph Curry who's just doing it right constantly, all the time, and whatever that means to you, I would find it pretty hard to believe that you have like a problem with how he,
Mhm.
is a team player and his fit for a team. Number one, let's go into Giannis, Bernie.
Yep.
For me, my number one, your number two. Giannis, to me, I think it's undeniable. Like I understand of all the players you could say is number one over Giannis, I really couldn't fault you for Steph, and that has to do with the fact that he just won his fourth championship in pretty convincing fashion. But the thing with Giannis is just it's just the LeBron syndrome from like 2005 to 2016, right? It's the same way I felt about LeBron then,
Mhm.
in terms of there is nothing you can present this guy with that he cannot overcome. Like he cannot be stopped offensively or defensively. There's no game plan. There's nothing you can do. You just have to deal with it and eliminate as many of the other players on the court around him as you possibly can.
Right.
And when it comes down to it too, for me, like Giannis, and the thing that really made me start to love Giannis is just his commitment to making mistakes in terms of to make them in an effort to get better at the things he's weak at. And he
Mhm.
does it all the time. He doesn't just do it in closed gyms when we can't watch. He does it in big games. He takes shots that, sometimes you would criticize other players for, but then you see him actively start to learn from it and develop. Even in the middle of games, you've seen it from him. And that takes a super special type of player. And to me, if you're undeniably number one on defense and you're undeniably top three in offense,
Mhm.
you're my guy. That's your number one to me.
Yeah.
And he's both of those things. So yeah, Giannis is a hard number one for me. I almost would put him in his own tier personally if we're not even counting Steph's championship. If we're not counting that, Giannis is like kind of a tier of his own for me.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I will say about Giannis and the reason why I think he is probably one of the two top best players in the league currently is because I think there's no game plan for him. Just like you talked about with LeBron James all those years back. There's no real game plan. The only thing you can hope is to contain him and allow his teammates to make the mistakes rather than him. And again, we talked about it years before, even that championship year. He was kind of just a bulldozer at times, right? Where he would just drive in the lane. He could draw easy charge opportunities. And as long as you were there to kind of take those opportunities, he was not really that great of a passer out there. But he has improved his stats every year in the assist category. And I think that you can clearly see him getting a lot better in that instance of being able to know when and where to make those passes. And I think that as Giannis continues to develop, not only his IQ, as Gilbert Arenas would like to critique, he's going to improve his game. I mean, again, he's not going to be a knockdown shooter. I don't think he ever will be. Just with the fact that, kind of looking at his shooting mechanics, looking at kind of how stiff he can be when it comes to the shooting part, he will probably not be, again, not a Steph Curry, not even maybe a LeBron James even in terms of three-point shooting. But I think that he will be at least good enough to where that if you do leave him open, it's not going to be an issue. And that or it's going to be an issue for the other team, I should say.
Mhm.
And so I think like when I look at it and everything that comes, man, like he's just unstoppable. You get him going with the head of steam. Guy only needs 2 steps to get to to go, shoot a layup from half court. I mean, there's nothing more else that you can want from a guy like Giannis other than he has that charisma and has that energy too. And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards him as an athlete, because he does have those characteristics that you're looking for when you talk about chemistry, Pete. Especially when it comes to the team chemistry part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with Steph. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, there's not a guy you'd want in your locker room more than Giannis, not named Steph Curry.
Yeah. And again, it's not to take anything away from these other guys that we see here on this list. These other guys have their specialties, but I just think Giannis, again, even with his limitations that people like to put on him, he still has that innate ability to get guys to honestly play to the standard higher than what they normally do. And I've only seen that happen with 2 guys, and that's Steph Curry and that's LeBron James. LeBron James being the number one first and foremost. And again, we talk about guys like Bobby Portis, who got a huge contract under his wing. His brother got a contract under his wing. I think he's got 2 brothers now that plays for this team. And again, you could talk about that being the family connection, but again, a lot of people thought Drew Holiday was a nice piece. He was okay, but he leveled up when he went to play for Giannis. Even Chris Middleton leveled up as soon as he was with Giannis. And so I think that's what people forget sometimes when it comes to guys like LeBron James and Giannis, is that he levels guys up. Same thing with Steph Curry, levels guys up. That's what I think guys like Luka can do. That's what I think Jokic can do. That's what I think Tatum potentially could have the ability, depending on how this next season comes for him. Kevin Durant, I think, had it for a period of time, but I just think that some other outside stuff has been kind of the reason why I think a lot of people have been off of Kevin Durant. But kind of going back more so to the Giannis point, he does a lot of the things the right way. And as cringy and as corny as that sounds, those are what win you championships. Those are what puts you in contention for trying to become an NBA champion, are those instances right there.
One, too, one thing for Giannis, another thing I don't think people talk about enough is, we hear about the ADs and Joel Embiids of the world, these guys that, are very often playing 40 or 50 games or even less in a lot of seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Giannis. I mean, Giannis has played 591 games of 656 available, I believe. Like, he does not miss games very often. And, considering the fact that the guy is 7 feet tall, he's, oftentimes either the 4 or the 5 on the team he's playing with. That's almost unheard of. Like, there's not many players who are physically that dominant that they can hold up. And, just when it comes down to it, if you want I can't stress enough how similar I feel to Giannis right now at this point in his career as I did to LeBron in that stretch of the early 2010s. There is just nothing you can do to stop him, so much so that you can basically pencil his team in every season to be a 1 or 2 seed. They're going to be in the playoffs. And regardless of the players around him, the only question is how far can they go because of the players around him, right? And Giannis, I would argue, is right in contention with and some people would disagree with this, right? Because he does have Drew Holiday, he does have Chris Middleton, and I like Drew a lot. And Drew has gone up a few ranks for me in the last, couple seasons since he's been with the Bucks. But Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday were not even close to top 25 players before they played with Giannis. Like you said, they both leveled up significantly playing with Giannis, right? So if you were to ever be able to plug somebody that was just a legitimate top 25 with or without Giannis in next to him, if we're talking kind of like a Heatles type situation, like early D Wade and LeBron, people would feel very differently. People really would. It's just that Giannis has kind of had to build this name for himself from absolute zero, playing in YMCA gyms in Athens, Greece, right? And It's funny, like we started the stream off talking about Gilbert Arenas and, hating on Giannis, and now we have them both 2-1. And I think if you're a rational person who watches the sport, who cares about like not only winning, but all the things that people fault Kyrie, fault Kevin Durant, fault any of the players that get talked about all the time, you should hold the same energy in a positive light towards Giannis because he does everything right to be one of those top guys. And he, I would argue, just as much as anybody else, has earned every accolade that he has gotten in his career. He has earned every step of it. And I think the truly, truly great players recognize it. Not saying I'm one of those. I'm garbage. I'm just saying he's earned every step of this journey he's been on. And dude, I love Giannis. I will defend Giannis from the mountaintops at this point. Like we rode pretty hard in that playoffs that they ended up winning in 2020. Like we had a lot of doubts. And, seeing him take these weird 3-point shots and, bricking free throws and taking more than 10 seconds to shoot a shot. None of it matters when you're a player like Giannis. None of it matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, at the end of the day, I think that this list, again, a lot of people will disagree. A lot of people will agree. I think that when it comes to it, I think people just need to realize that, again, it's just our opinions. No need to get frustrated or upset or cry that we've made our opinions about who we think are the top 15 best players. I hope no one cries, but I know I made Pete cry with the Jokic pick. But again, I think at the end of the day, let's kind of leave it to you guys out there that are watching this video after it's pre-recorded, or people that are just kind of watching in general. What do you guys think of our list? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our top 15 players? Again, for the most part, this would be the players that would probably win the award, minus, obviously the forward/center position. So I might knock a couple guys out. But let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about all this? Again, it's all opinion based. I think that there's not a lot of facts in this at times. I mean, I think we have some facts, but for the most part, it's our opinion. So I just want to make that clear because, again, you know how people get on the internet. They need to cry about a list where they disagree or agree with what you say. So that's the reason why I said that.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more wrong. And really, just one last thing too, piggybacking on that is when you're in the top 15, top 10 of the NBA, you have to look really close with a fine tooth comb to separate these guys out. They're all the elite of the elite. You can have little gripes here and there, but like it comes down to personal preference, really. But also, you do have to weigh the success of these guys. Like their individual careers, how much they're still doing it, and it's an eye test for pretty much everybody. So that's why I like your LeBron placement more than I do, more than I like mine. But I was going with my head and not my heart, and I think that you still won me over. I still like yours more than mine with LeBron.
Yeah, but let us know.
I got a question for you though before we cap off our list. Is there any players you're surprised we didn't talk about in the top 15 or honorable mention list? Is there any guys that you think we're being the most disrespectful to or surprised by?
I think Chris Paul was probably on that list of players that we probably disrespected just a little bit because, again, whether we agree with it or not, he still carried the Phoenix Suns to a first place. As much as we like to put the onus on Devin Booker, he also helped in that category and still being a great point guard at his age as well. I just think that we also need to mention him in that list of players. Another player. No, go ahead.
I really, really, really thought that Zach LaVine was going to be at the end of your list. I really thought he was. That was who I meant earlier when you said you weren't going to put Paul George. I thought you were going to have LaVine over him. And I was thinking, I'm not so sure about that, but I think they're pretty close to each other.
Can I give you one more player that might surprise people for another honorable mention? I'm going to give it to Andrew Wiggins.
I thought you were going to say Furkan Korkmaz.
Korkmaz might get it next year. But I got to give it to Wiggins, man. I think that he really changed his narrative that a lot of people in the media, including myself as well, that, we talked about Andrew Wiggins in the past before, especially when he was in Minnesota. even with Jimmy Butler there and the whole situation that happened there where he beat Jimmy Butler beat Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns against with the scrubs, or I should say, the players that the practice players. But he deserves a mention too, and it's kind of funny that we're kind of talking about it now, but he does deserve a mention because in that playoffs he was unbelievable last year. Again, changing the narrative that was brought upon him. A lot of people said, "Oh, the next Air Canada Jordan, right? Air Canada Jordan." Like there was all these comparisons to Michael Jordan. A lot of people talking about it, but you cannot hate or can't. What's the right word? You can't ignore the fact that he played a tremendous game and a tremendous season. And I think that he reestablished his narrative with winning the championship. And again, championships, whether players agree with it or not, changes a lot of narratives, right? It puts you in this weird category of actually being a great player. Again, maybe not so much for like Adam Morrison as much, but for a guy like Andrew Wiggins, the first round pick, he deserves to be in that list because not only the way that he played against the Boston Celtics in that final series, but his whole playoff series that he had. I think that he was tremendous. And I think that he definitely changed his narrative going forward. And I think he obviously earned a big contract in the future, as we kind of continue to talk about, what teams will do. Maybe they'll move for him. Who knows?
Yeah, he was the second best player on a championship team. And as much as people don't ever want to accept that about guys like Wiggins, he really was the second best player on a championship team. And those guys usually end up being Hall of Famers. But he deserves to be where he is. I agree with you. I think we did a little bit of a disservice not talking about him. I still will be straight up honest with you. There's a lot of those honorable mention guys I would still take before him. He's one that I have questions of whether it's just like, is it the Curry effect? Is it being in the system that he's in? Is it really is that showing the perfect version of this guy? But you can't fault him for being in the situation he's in. You can't. So he is definitely an honorable mention. Somebody we needed to talk about because he did change my perception of him a lot too. I would never even consider him for the top 50 before last season. So you're not wrong whatsoever. The last guy that I want to talk about, just because I think it's interesting that neither of us mentioned him, and I think a lot of people would put him in their top 15, is Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell. I thought you were going to say Bam Adebayo.
I think a lot of people would put Donovan Mitchell in their top 15.
You think
so? Do. I do. I really do. I think most people, I think the average fan would probably put him at like 15 or 14. I think so. And I don't think that's reasonable, personally. I mean, that's kind of why I've been slightly on the Knicks trading for him bandwagon. But I think realistically, the reason why I just unequivocally cannot put him in my top 15 or honorable mentions was just how bad defensively he was in the playoffs against Dallas. He was just a zero, maybe a 5 out of 100. It was just so bad. So I was just interested. I was very curious if you were going to put him in your top 15. I didn't think you would, but I think a lot of people would. So that's my question to the chat. Chat, is there anybody either now or in the comments afterwards, tell me what you think of Donovan Mitchell, where he would go if you would consider him for your top 15.
Yeah, definitely let us know. And also let us know if there's anybody that you see players on this page right here. Let us know if there's any players that we're missing off this honorable mention or even in our top 15. That's something that, again, adding to Pete's question, let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about that? Again, remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And again, let us know what you think about our list and honorable mentions here on The Charge. All right, Pete, I think it's time, man. I think it's time to kind of say sayonara to everybody, say goodbye. Appreciate you coming on the stream, obviously talking about our top 15 best players. We will get back to talking about our teams and our preseason rankings. Just kind of waiting for a couple more moves to see if anything will happen before we start that. So do you have anything to say before we sign out of here?
I would just say stay tuned for some preseason rankings as far as the teams are concerned. I think we both, alluded to some maybe spicy takes, some interesting thoughts we have for some of these the teams coming into this season. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We got a lot of big streams coming up, some big plans for this next NBA season. So yeah, definitely subscribe, come back, check us out, hang out. Appreciate y'all.
All right, and with that being said, like Pete said, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, more likes, the more subscribers, all that leads to more people enjoying the content. We appreciate you guys for getting us to that 1,100 mark. Can we get to that magic 2K mark by the end of the year? That's what I'm going to hold you guys accountable to share this with your friends, share this with people that are interested in basketball, and let's continue to grow this game because I think basketball could be, again, a potential global game if it's done the right way. But anyway, guys, like Pete said, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.